The animal sleeping on your couch right now is technically a wolf, but it doesn't look like one, it doesn't act like one, and it definitely doesn't see you as food. How can two animals with the exact same DNA be so different? One is a wild predator that would tear you apart without a second thought. The other is your best friend. What happened? To understand it, you have to go back 20,000 years, to a cave, to a cold night, to a moment when a human, just like you, was lying on the ground trying to sleep. 10 meters away, there was a wolf. It had been watching him for hours. It knew he was defenseless. It knew he was 150 pounds of meat, completely unconscious, breathing loudly. By any biological standard, he was perfect prey. The wolf should have attacked. It should have gone for his throat and dragged him into the dark. But it didn't. It stayed still. It watched, and it waited. Why? For decades, scientists had no answer, and when they finally found one, it was so strange that people still argue about it today. Because dogs weren't domesticated through intelligence. It wasn't a master plan. It was a coincidence that changed the world forever. To understand this, you first need to know one thing. Wolves are not stupid. A wolf can detect a human scent from more than 18 miles away. It can hear your footsteps from twice the distance you could ever hear it. Its sense of smell is 100 times more sensitive than yours. Its hearing 20 times sharper. And yes, it has seen you, it has smelled you, it has heard you. It knows exactly where you are, how big you are, and whether you're alone. But there's something it doesn't understand. Think about it. A deer, when it senses danger, freezes. It waits. It trusts its camouflage. A rabbit, on the other hand, bolts instantly. Every prey animal has predictable reactions that predators have learned to read over millions of years of evolution. Humans don't fit that pattern. When you sleep, you're motionless for hours. You breathe slowly, unevenly. You don't try to run. You give off body heat. And on top of that, you carry strange smells. Synthetic fabrics, processed food, chemicals, and above all, the smell of fire. To a wolf, a sleeping human doesn't look like food. It looks like an unidentified threat. There's a concept in biology called neophobia, fear of the unknown. Large predators carry it for a very simple reason. In nature, the thing you don't recognize might be exactly the thing that kills you. A new smell, a strange sound, an unfamiliar shape in the dark. The smartest move is to avoid it. And humans trigger that instinct hard. We carry fire, metal, and synthetic materials that have never existed in nature. Even our sweat has a different chemical makeup than that of other mammals because of our diet and hygiene products. But that alone doesn't explain how the relationship between humans and wolves began. Because even though wolves feared us, some of them did something no one expected. 20,000 years ago, humans lived in small hunting bands. We were nomads. We followed herds of animals to survive. And wherever there are humans, there's trash, broken bones, hides, food scraps. There were no supermarkets, but there were no trash cans either. Everything stayed right there on the ground, around the camp. Wolves, who were also hunters, found an easy food source in those camps. Instead of chasing a deer for hours, they could sneak in and steal a bone with meat still on it. But of course, not every wolf dared to do that. The more cautious ones kept their distance. The hungrier ones, or the less fearful ones, got closer. And here's the key part. Those less fearful wolves, by getting closer to camp, got more food. They were more likely to survive, and more likely to reproduce. Their pups inherited that less shy gene. Over time, generation after generation, the wolves that stuck around humans became more and more docile. Not because humans chose them, but because nature itself was selecting for the wolves brave enough to stay close to us. Scientists call this the commensal hypothesis. These wolves became commensals of humans, not pets, not helpers, scavengers that learned to live off our leftovers. And what did humans get out of it? As it turns out, having an animal nearby, even a wolf, had a real advantage. If that wolf got nervous, or growled, or bolted, it meant something was approaching. The wolf worked as an early warning system against other predators, or against hostile tribes. But this was still just a cold trade. A you don't attack me, I let you eat my scraps kind of deal. Nothing special. Until something happened that no one saw coming. Have you ever done something without thinking it through? Some small gesture you never planned, that just worked out? Well, something like that happened. At some point, some human, for whatever reason, decided to share their food with one of these wolves. Not the scraps, their own food. A piece of meat they could have eaten themselves, but chose to give to the animal instead. Why? Maybe it was empathy. Maybe the wolf looked hurt. Maybe the human was bored. Maybe they just felt sorry for it. We don't know. But that gesture changed everything. Because from that moment on, the wolf stopped being a scavenger. It became a companion. It started following the human not just for food, but for connection. And the human, seeing that the wolf wouldn't attack him, started to trust it. Think about it. When you share food with someone, you create a bond. With a human, with an animal, it's the same thing. This is the theory some scientists support today, that dogs weren't domesticated through deliberate control but through coincidence, a kind of emotional accident. Humans didn't tame the wolf because they wanted a hunting partner. They tamed it because, in a moment of weakness or kindness, they shared their food. And that act of generosity, probably unintentional, created a bond no other species has ever managed to replicate. And this isn't some wild theory. There's evidence. Scientists have found genetic evidence that dog domestication happened in two different places at almost the same time, in Europe and in Asia. Two groups of humans, separated by thousands of miles, independently started living alongside wolves. What does that mean? That this wasn't some lone genius with a brilliant idea. It was a natural process, almost inevitable. It happened again and again, wherever humans and wolves shared the same space. Because humans, without even knowing it, created the perfect environment for the least fearful wolves to thrive. And the wolves, without knowing it either, adapted to that environment until they became something entirely new. But it wasn't all easy. As wolves became more docile, their appearance started to change too. Their ears drooped, their snouts got shorter, their teeth got smaller, their skulls shrank. Wolves were turning into dogs, and not because humans were selectively breeding them for it. Domestication, even self-domestication, comes with a physical cost. Dogs lost many of the abilities wolves had. They could no longer hunt as well. They could no longer survive on their own in the wild. They became dependent on humans. And in exchange, humans gained something priceless, a companion that protected them, that warned them of danger, that helped them hunt. And that, on top of all that, offered them something no other animal could: unconditional loyalty. Have you ever noticed that your dog does things no wolf ever would? Bringing you the ball, curling up beside you, licking your face when you're sad. Those things aren't wolf instincts. They're the result of 20,000 years of coincidences, small gestures, shared food, and glances exchanged in the dark. The dog isn't a human invention. It's a byproduct of living together. Here's the part that actually matters. Humans didn't need dogs to survive. They already had tools, weapons, fire. They could hunt without help. They could defend themselves without help. So why did they domesticate them? And that's the strangest part of this whole story. The dog wasn't domesticated for usefulness. It was domesticated by chance, by coincidence, by an act of empathy that neither side fully understood. The humans who shared their food with wolves weren't thinking about the future. They weren't thinking about gaining a hunting partner. They were thinking about that wolf, in that moment, in that one gesture. And that's exactly what makes this story worth telling. Because it's not a story about intelligence. It's not a story about strategy. It's a story about humanity. But that doesn't mean we don't need them today. Their sense of smell, thousands of times more sensitive than ours, helps find missing people, detect diseases, and pick up on dangers we'd never notice on our own. Their hearing picks up sounds and frequencies we could never hear. The very same senses that once made us afraid in the dark of a cave now protect us every single day. So the next time you look at your dog, that animal staring at you with total devotion, ready to move the world for a piece of your food, remember this. It's not the result of a master plan. It's not the product of human intelligence. It's the result of a coincidence, an accident. A moment when a human, thousands of years ago, decided to share their food with a wolf that had no business getting it. That look he gives you while you eat. The way he curls up beside you. That loyalty that seems to have no limits. It all started with one simple gesture. A gesture that made no sense. A gesture that was never planned. A gesture that most likely wasn't even conscious. And that coincidence, that tiny gesture, created the longest lasting and strangest relationship in all of human history. Because dogs aren't man's best friend because we chose them to be. They're man's best friend because, At some point, both of us decided, without even knowing it, that it was worth a shot. Most people have never stopped to think about this, but now you know. Now you know your dog isn't a domesticated wolf. He's a wolf that chose to stay. So tell me, do you think the human took the first step or the wolf? Leave it in the comments.